Hello everyone, welcome to Tea with TPS. This is episode number 10 with Shri.G.Vijayaraghavan. Shri.G.Vijayaraghavan is a household name in Kerala, particularly in Trivandrum. I see him as the architect of modern Trivandrum. The many things that Trivandrum has today, starting from IT to Technopark to disabled schools, regular international schools, there is no institution which he has not built in Trivandrum. So he has this rich experience of many years in thinking about it, dreaming about it, and realizing those dreams and thoughts. I met him first in New York when he has probably just taken over as the CEO of Technopark, which was about to be built. He came with the minister, and then itself I could see the sparkle in his eyes. And I could see that Trivandrum was a dream for him. And all these years I observed him, I found that he is totally dedicated, totally objective. He can deal with any political party and openly expresses his views without fear or favor. Welcome, Shri Vijayaraghavan.
Thanks, Ambassador Srinivasan, and thanks for the introduction. I think a bit too much for anything.
Well, but I know now that you are doing many more things. So can you tell us now exactly what your agenda is at the moment? These things have gone back. We have actually left some of these institutions, having brought them up. So, but what is your current?
I have, what I say, two parts to what I do. Some I do for my pocket, which is my consulting, which I work with multiple companies, both in and outside India. The other is what I do for my art, which is what I work in the area of disabilities. And my big focus today is the Center for Autism and Other Disabilities Rehabilitation Research and Education, which is being set up in Trivandrum. And of course, like you, I also spend a lot of time on discussions, on
debates and discussions.
on Kerala, Trivandrum. So that's something which I do.
Yes, you are very much in demand, I know. Let us start with the current issue in Trivandrum's development, which is the airport. I know you have been a champion of privatized airports, or at least private-public participation. But why is it the present government and even the opposition insisting that there should be a government airport?
There's something which is very interesting here, that the privatization of airports started during Dr. Manmohan Singh's time as Prime Minister in the first UPA government. And at that time, both the opposition in Kerala, which was the ruling in Delhi at that time, and the ruling in Kerala, which was supporting the ruling in Delhi at that time, supported that move. So I don't really see why, and at least I'm happy that in the last few days, the Congress has come out openly saying that they are not against privatization. Okay, but one of the things which we must realize is that the government's option, which the state government has given, is also in a way privatization. Because when I looked at the document, which the expression of interest which the Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation floated, they were looking at entities, business entities, with a net asset base of over 500 crores to be their partners in the airport venture. So it's very clear that it is not government alone. So government will hold maybe 26% and the rest will go to somebody else. So I really don't see a difference between the government model and the model which has come into the government of India. At the same time, we need to know that when you talk about today saying why don't we do the Cochin model, why don't we do the Kannur model? Actually, I am sure that the government supported consortium would have got the bid if they had the Cochin International Airport bid for it, because there would be no additional overheads. Instead of that, there was a completely new entity set up called the Trivandrum International Airport Limited, which would mean you're going to add on a new managing director, a new CFO, a new administrative setup, and the overhead would have gone up. And because of that, the government, even though they had a 10% the price advantage for the purpose of matching, for purpose of last refusal, they lost it because it went over 90%. So I'm sure they would have come within that 10%, if they had not set up another one. So very difficult to say. I don't know, but the interests are completely different.
No, but from the center's point of view, did they go on the basis of the comparative merits of the proposals rather than the principle that it should be private? What motivated the government to take this decision?
I would say the government of India's decision to privatize airports is a very well-studied decision, and something which, like I said, was implemented from Manmohan Singh's time. This government went a step further, actually tweaked the model, which I think is better for the government, because you are not looking at anything there. You're not even bothered about their revenue. You're telling them, pay me per passenger. And you should remember that all the airports being privatized in this are only 10% of the total passenger traffic. So that was one. The second one, it was a transparent process. Actually, the government of Kerala indirectly acknowledged and supported the process by bidding as becoming part of the tendering process. If they had not become part of the tendering process and they had gotten court to stop the tendering process earlier, they would have stood a chance in court. But today, that is not going to be possible, because you can't fight against a tender after you lost the tender.
Right. No, but can this be reversed? Or what is the process?
I don't think the process can be reversed, is my feeling, unless there is something which a lot of us haven't seen in the entire bidding process which we don't know about. I don't think it can be reversed, unless the Adanis decide not to go forward with it. Adanis can say that the state government is not supporting, we don't want to take it up. But the state government also, I don't think, can say they cannot support, because they want the court says no, you have to go forward with it. At that point of time, the state government cannot say that you will not sign a state support agreement. What the state government can do is actually it can go back to the government of India and say, look, of the total asset that was created, so much of it is our contribution, because there was land which the state government gave, the land which Maharaja gave, which can be against state government. So you value the entire project, look at the valuation of the land which was given free, that becomes part of that total cost, and then to tell them, look, out of the 168, 10% is due to us, or 25% is due to us. That is something the state government can do, and that is what
It means they will have a partnership. They will get a partnership together with Adani or whoever.
No, I don't think they should be looking at a partnership with Adani. But the 168 rupees which is given to the airport authority, because you should remember, the entire property belongs to the Airport Authority of India. And
Right.
the money will be given only to the Airport Authority of India. But the government can agree into, because they have a part, they can say there's a part ownership in that. They can say 10% or 20%, depending on the valuation of the land, should come to the state government. So the Airport Authority will calculate 168 and give 16 rupee 80 paisa or 33 rupees 60 paisa, depending on what percentage is due to the state government. That is what I think is going to be the only solution, unless the Adanis go back on this.
And the High Court is also likely to say the same, sir? Because the new court.
Because I think there are very clear Supreme Court judgments. You cannot go back. You cannot go and fight a case which you are part of. The only thing which can happen is there are others who have gone to court, like the employees have gone to court. If they can go to court and find a problem with the entire tendering process, which I think is going to be quite difficult, because several people have bid and all that can be there. You can't find fault because Adani's got 6 airports, because all 6 are with them. They can't even talk about, unless there were some conditions changed after the bidding process started, which I don't think have happened. So I don't think it's going to stand very well in court.
But as far as you and I are concerned, our concern is that we should have a good airport, which should not be more expensive than Kochi. These are all the concerns that we have. How do you think this will solve that problem? Do you think it will, this privatization?
But the way I look at it, for a person who is not familiar with airports or development or numbers, one only thing I should say is that Adanis have bid for it. Adanis have to make money. The only way they will be able to make money if there are more passengers coming to the airport. If there are more passengers, you will require more flights to come. When you have more flights, there will be more competition for run. And when that is happening, automatically the rates will come down. Today, it is cheaper to actually hire a Mercedes-Benz car from Trivandrum and go to Kochi, and then from there fly to Dubai, or even to Delhi, because the rates are so much different. Okay? So the thing is that very clearly, I believe that the cost will come down for the traveler. whether they're business travel or otherwise. But the most important thing is not just the cost coming down. I think the connectivity is important, because the connectivity is important for the economic development of Trivandrum.
So, what do you see? What are the other things happening in Trivandrum which is going to make it, bigger and better? How about the Techno Park and the connected setup there?
When we were discussing briefly earlier, you told me what is that I see as the future of Trivandrum. I would say that, look, one is the airport.
So that's why I started with that. Yeah, okay.
Maybe try to list out maybe 12 of them. Okay, one is the airport. The second is the Vizhinjam International Seaport. Because with the seaport, you will have ships coming. When ships come, there is automatically economic development. Also, what will happen is with the airport and the seaport so close to each other, you are going to find a lot of connected business coming in. You could have cruise liners coming into Trivandrum. Okay, where they will look at this being a changeover point, where people will come by air, get into a cruise, and then get down somewhere else. Or they'll come back and go from here. So it could become a terminal. The second thing which will happen is, because they need to see business in the seaport and the airport, I believe that the Adanis and people whom they know will actually bring in new industries into Trivandrum.
Yeah, before we go on to the other item, what is your assessment of the seaport? How soon will it come about? Do you see problems?
It is going slow now, but I don't think people can slow it down beyond a point. I believe there were two things. One was the quarrying related thing, which I think is sorted out. But there is still some more land that is required to be acquired. The process of it was completed about 4 years ago. I think the government just need to take possession of that and give it to them. Right? I don't know whether it's an issue on finance or otherwise, but there is the land available for that, which should be done. The process is completed. The government just needs to take possession. The other one is the land required for the railway connectivity. There again, I don't think the entire land has been taken into possession. I would say land acquisition is one of the blocks that is there.
Yes, biggest problems in Kerala. Yes.
Yeah, but no, I don't think there is an issue of identifying that, or the process is done. You just have to take it over, and I don't know why, but there is a gap there. So at this point of time.
How about the personnel to man the seaport? Do we have the people, or where will we get them from? Because this is a very specialized business.
One is, of course, they themselves will have their people. They will be running some ports. The second one is there are Malayalis around the world who work in major ports. You go to the best ports in the world, you will see Malayalis working there. The Singapore port, the one at Rotterdam, Dubai, you will find enough Keralites working there, or people from southern Kerala or southern Tamil Nadu working there. They'll be quite happy to come back. So running people will not be a problem. What will also happen is, getting in the senior people, they will actually recruit a large number of fresh out of college young people to this. But the jobs that are going to be created directly in the port or directly at the airport are going to be a fraction of the jobs that will overall be created because these two establishments are coming. So going to the third project which I would look at, the third project is the Technocity Phase 3. The Technocity Phase 3 is one where Taurus and there's some other companies coming there. It's stuck because of an environmental clearance related issue. I would say that government needs to relook at it. If required, redo the plans, because we cannot afford to have development which is impacting the environment beyond the point. Right? Indirectly, I am responsible for what happened in Phase 1. I have actually filled up maybe about 100 plus acres of paddy fields, but I never filled up a water body. We actually retain and we strengthen the water bodies that were there within them, because we know that water is a shortage. So I would say maybe relook at that. So that is the what I would call the third project that is there. The fourth.
But is the space, before we go to the next, the space is fully utilized, so there is demand for expansion?
There is substantial demand for expansion, but there are not enough. At least pre-COVID, a lot of companies wanted space. All right. And therefore, when Taurus or whoever builds up that facility comes, it will be utilized. You're going to see for the next maybe 6 months to a year, people will have some spare capacity on space, but it will have to pick up. And that's what I see when I talk to large groups around the world. That companies, even though they are saying that they're not going to be having their people back in office till end of September or October or December, they are still planning for more space for next year because they need space with social distancing.
Right. They need more space. Bigger.
If they want all the people in office, they will need 30 to 40% more space. And when that is done, you need that much more built-up space. Or they'll have to say you come to office only for half the time, which some companies can't do. So
No, but the new norm is going to be people will continue to work from home, and that may eventually happen, and there will be a lot of excess space.
Very difficult. Even if you look, one of the places where it works very well is in the United States, and even there, you don't have people. You have people coming back to office for a couple of days a week. They may spend 2-3 days at home, but they're back in office for a couple of days a week. And you will need to have space. That's what I said. You will need to have space for 50-60% of the people. Minimum you will need to provide.
And with the need for more space.
There will still be a need for more space, is what I believe. The next project will be the Techno-City project, where nearly 15 years ago, we've acquired over 400 to 500 acres of land. Only the IIIT, MK, and one other institution have come there, and one of the buildings which Technopark has built. And there is one private company building a facility there, which is Suntech Business Solutions. Hundreds of acres are left there, and we should look at how we can attract institutions into that area. So that would be what I would say is the I hope I'm getting my count correct. The fourth project. The fifth project is the National Institute of Speech and Hearing. The National Institute of Speech and Hearing was to be upgraded as a university.
Not happening. This is niche, right? Yeah. This is what you established, yes.
This was something I established and looked after for 20 years. I worked on the detailed project report. I went through the entire process with the Empowered Finance Committee of the Government of India. Everything was cleared. It got stopped just before it went to the Parliament for the final act, because it was going to be set up as under an act as a special act under the Government of India as an institution of national excellence. I would say it was only political. I hope that is moved. And if for some reason the Government of India does not go forward with it, I believe that the state government should establish that as a national university.
But why political? What is the politics?
I don't think it's appropriate to get into it, but the fact is that the ministers made announcements. It was in Arun Jaitley's budget speech that it will be elevated as a national university, and the cabinet note was done, and then it disappeared. And then the minister said it is being done, it will come in the process, but suddenly the minister said one day in Parliament that it is going to go to somewhere in the Northeast, and that was more than a year or two ago. You can't set up an institution like this in the Northeast. It will have to be set up here, because you will not get the kind of people, and you can't grow a university overnight. This is an institution with 20 years of exceptional track record. The next project which I would talk about is actually the water bodies of Trivandrum. You have the Brellani Lake, which is a freshwater lake, and that is actually getting, I don't want to use the word encroached, but there is too much that is happening which is not good for the water body. We need to rejuvenate that. The other one is the Bailey Affluent water bodies. The Bailey and Affluent water bodies have become the biggest cesspool in this region. Okay, with all the waste and garbage from all over Trivandrum land. And that is something which cannot be done. We need to do it. But the sad part is that there has been money provided for that. A few public sector undertakings just took the money and did practically nothing about cleaning it up. So that is something which needs to be a big focus area, because this lake, I would say, is we could actually look at it like the lake in Geneva, where we have a beautiful raid with boating, a big fountain in the middle. It could become a big economic activity area. So I would look at that being another project that we should be looking at, the water bodies of Trivandrum.
But that is entirely in the hands of the government, are they?
It is entirely in the hands of the government to actually get that done. Even when this new government came, they talked about it, they created a committee. They did some work, but it has not gone beyond the point. And
But
somehow
the waste disposal is the issue in the city, isn't it? Because unless waste disposal is organized, how can you prevent this from going into the lakes?
Oh, yes. The way to do that is actually to contain the pollution coming in. Don't work at the lake. You have to work upstream.
Yes.
To work to block it wherever it is. So if I do a block at an area which is 100 meters from my home, I'm not going to then allow pollute that place. So we will need to look at containing the garbage in those areas in such a manner that the lake doesn't, and then start cleaning it. Today, that's not the case. Sorry. People have actually, you've got large bulldozers working here. They come, they make near off Pallipuram, near Thodekal. Life Sciences Park, again, land acquired nearly 15 years ago. Right? The number of foreign trips which officers have made to see what has to be done there would be huge, but very little activity that has happened. One good project that is happening there is the Virology Institute, and I think that's a very good thing that is happening for Trivandrum. But that you have to have more institutions come there, and you need to promote that very well.
But can we go back to the disposal issue? Because what is the situation now? Because I remember when the new government took over, we had a discussion and I was also invited. And they were saying that the kind of projects like in Vienna, I was pointing out those things. Everything goes into that incinerator and no dirt is seen anywhere, gardens are formed. They said, no, this is not fashionable anymore. We cannot have centralized disposal. It has to be in the homes. I thought it was not a wise idea at all because it is practical. We are seeing it how it is being done in most countries of the world. I had in fact brought some experts here to talk to the government, but somehow that is not picked up. We don't have a way of decently disposing of your waste.
Well, I would say that a lot of things which people are talking about are theoretical. At the end of the day, you need a good waste disposal plant. You can't say that homes will do it. You can look at it being decentralized, having 5 plants if you want to. You don't want to, but you will have to have a waste disposal plant. Unfortunately, we don't have it. But the sad part is that in Singapore, one of the biggest plants in Singapore is actually run by a Malayali from Trivandrum.
I'm sure that will be possible.
And they come here. I had written about it in one of the newspapers, the Malayalam Manorama. The tag was there, but I think that there are 2 things here. It requires the people to accept that there could be a garbage plant near my home, but it will not impact my life. The problem is that
it doesn't impact. I used to live near to that famous Vienna incinerator. There was no idea that there was any such thing.
And the sad part is when Vilappalchala was being set up, they actually dumped garbage before the plant came in.
No
then
processing.
It started failing. So it was not planned very well. Okay, one. The second thing is, you can give it to one party, but you should actually allow them to manage the entire garbage cycle. That is, from collection to the final thing should be with one party. You can't say that Kudumbasri will do it or the corporation will do something. That doesn't work. There has to be an economic model on this. And that is the only way that will work.
But then nothing in sight at the moment.
I don't
as far as you know.
I know there were a lot of bins kept in various places, but I don't think that we have found a solution to that. Because if we had found a solution to that, you will not see the garbage on the side of our roads when you go to Kovalam or when you travel to Aklam, or even in residential areas, you will not find garbage being dumped into a compound where there is no one staying there.
Yes, because nobody picking up, there's no agency which you can pay for it. So how do you expect it to disappear? It won't disappear like that. It'll land up in the lakes. So that is another important. I think some citizens' movement has to really push this, I feel.
And citizens, actually, we have to take on responsibility for that. That is what is becoming important. The other project would be, I talked about the life science park. Okay, another one is, of course, the light metro project for Trivandrum. Okay, today it was planned that phase 1 would be Pallipuram to Karakutta. You can't do a Pallipuram Karakutta phase 1.
That's very small.
There's nobody traveling in that sector. Okay? So basically, it has to be, if you need to do phase 1 as Pallipuram, Karakuttam, all the 3 phases of Technopark it should cover. It should go via Akram to Ulur. There's a original route proposed was via Shri.G.Vijayaraghavan. I would say let that continue. There's an alternate route which can come in. Shri.G.Vijayaraghavan, Ulur. But this has to touch medical college. So phase 1 should touch the 3 phases of Technopark. Via Akram, go to Ulur Medical College. And then go to Tambanur. That should be phase 1. Phase 2 should actually connect the airport to this. Either going straight from Akulam to the airport, or it should come in from Tambanur to the airport.
But Kochi is not connected to the airport still, isn't it? Kochi is not connected.
It is not planned. It's not planned. So the second part, the airport connectivity and Neyyatingara, Nedumangad, Attingil should become part of this. That is the only way you will substantially bring in the traffic that is required to make the whole project viable, and you will bring down the crowding and pollution within Trivandrum.
No, originally there was an idea. Originally, I have heard there was an idea that leave old Trivandrum like this and build a new city covering all these areas you just mentioned. That has been given up. So, which means
I think those have been, in some minds and people talking about nothing more than that. But there is another program, which is the next project I'm talking about. There was a ring road on the eastern side of Trivandrum which was planned. That would actually look at the city expanding in that direction. Today, the city is mostly expanding to the north, which is towards Karakutam and beyond. Okay, if you do a very good road which goes on the eastern side, there's a lot of land there. There'll be a lot of development which can happen. It will become like a good suburb to Trivandrum, and then it meets the national highway, and along with that, the Karakutam Chartra National Highway project. If that is also taken up, then you clearly have a very clear the entire traffic planning for this area and the development in terms of road infrastructure would be there. The last point, and I hope I've not missed out any of the important points when I was when I was saying this.
As we talk about
the last point was the High Court bench at Trivandrum. This is something which a lot of us have been talking about for decades. We tend to forget. Nobody's talked about the High Court bench for the last 4 years. Either we've assumed it will never happen. But I think it can happen if we have the state government, the central government, and the most important person in this is the Chief Justice in Kerala. Work together to get this. But the lobbies which will oppose it are huge. One is you have the lawyers in and around Cochin who may not want to do that. But the biggest group is going to be government servants who actually to go and brief the lawyer will take 3 days. 1 day for travel up, 1 day for travel down, and 1 day to work there. Even though actually they go in the morning by train and come back, and they will claim 3 days off duty, and they claim the expenses for that.
That's a rather silly argument for that.
Well, I think that is the kind of groups who work against that program. Like the big group protesting against the airport is a small group of workers at the Airport Authority of India. More than half the people in the Airport Authority of India will need to be here because the Trivandrum Airport has one of the best, what I would call the traffic, your air travel control systems and the computerized management systems, etc. Those people have to be here because that's still controlled by Government of India. It is only the people involved in the management of the terminal who will get transferred. Like many people from Bombay and Delhi got transferred to Trivandrum when those airports got privatized. But they will also have an option to stay on with the Adanis if they take over there.
Okay, now we have sort of looked around. But what are real possibilities of these things developing? What is the sort of time frame you will give it? And how much can politics play in all this?
I would say that everything that I said can be done in less than 5 years. In less than 5 years, everything can be done if there is a willpower on that. So like for example, when we talk of the light metro, I don't think we should talk about the government doing it. We should just say it's a PPP project and the government will help with the land acquisition. The government doesn't have to be a stakeholder. The government of India will not. But government of India has a scheme for what they call the viability gap fund, under which we can do it. So clearly, each of those will have to be looked at separately, look at it and then come out. But I believe that whatever I said can be achieved in less than 5 years.
And money is not going to be an issue.
Because a lot of these projects now don't need government money. Like the 4-laning of the highway, it can be done with toll gates, but our mindset has to change.
How about the pressures of various constituencies and political leaderships trying to drag one to the other place, and that kind of problem also is there, isn't there?
On what I'm talking about on all these projects, you come to what will happen is the light metro Trivandrum will happen along with the light metro Kozhikode. It can't be different. Okay, the highway, I don't think you can tell that I want to take the Karakutam Chartra highway anywhere else. It'll have to be there. The land, most of the land has been acquired. The article bypass the land, notifications are out. You just need to make it 45 meters and take it forward. The inland waterway, there's a lot of work happening in that area. If that comes through, the tunnel, the very famous historic tunnel at Varkala, you can do a bypass to that if you want to. But those are all things which will have a high impact, not only in terms of the cargo traffic, but also in terms of tourism. Just imagine you can take a boat from Trivandrum to Cochin. The impact will be very, very high.
Absolutely. No, but having worked in Trivandrum for so many years, are you optimistic that these can be done without corruption? That seems to be the biggest issue. We are not talking about it. Are you optimistic about it? Because any project that you see, there will always be somebody making money, and therefore people have no faith in it. And and it is a real issue. So as a planner, how do you take that into account? How do you push these things with a clear realization that somebody is going to make money out of it?
So let me put it this way. The business guy, if he's involved, will make money. I don't think we can deny them that. But if you look at a very transparent process, like the Vizhinjam Seaport or the present airport, when people say that Adani made money in the Vizhinjam port, there was a commission appointed. The commission looked at the whole thing and there was nothing that could be pointed out. It is easy to make wild allegations. Now, in the airport case, if somebody says that Adani made money or BJP or whoever made money from Adani's for the Trivandrum airport, I don't think there's a way I can really agree to it, because it was a transparent process. Unless all the bidders got together with Adani to actually tell that you pay us something and we'll move out or pay the government something. But one of the bidders was the government of Kerala there.
But I'm talking about the lower level corruption also. There's a lot of money is taken on this way, that way, and some excuses. We know every day we find these, and then an inquiry goes on and on forever, and nothing happens. And so that kind of a lethargy.
For many of these projects, if you have a vigilant society, a lot of these are projects which are open projects. Okay, you will, like for example, I remember several years ago, there was money available for this inland waterway, and somebody tendered it out. It was tendered out, and the bright guy actually just tendered it out for deepening the canal, right? And they kept quiet, but this guy was actually deepening the canal and taking away the sand and making more money, much more money.
The project, exactly.
Because it was not wisely, because probably somebody did it purposely to stop. Even the Akulam Lake, that's what happened in between. They were actually cleaning up the sand and selling it. It can be part of the tendering process that you take so much of sand out of it. And this is what will cost you per lorry load of sand. You need to do a transfer. That is where I think the way the Vizhinjam Seaport project was done, the way it was tendered out, it stands the test of time. Totally transparent. You will not find a single loophole in that. And that was because you had people like K.M. Chandrasekhar and others who were involved in that. You had somebody called Mr. Haldia from the Government of India's Planning Commission. They looked at every aspect of this, looked at every loophole, and that is how that whole process happened. You can always look at large projects in a manner by which there cannot be corruption.
Well, let us hope, because my own experience is that at the lowest level, corruption is very rampant. And therefore, one loses faith in that, this can be done here. That is really the problem.
Yeah. Anyway, I would say the most important thing is that the lower level corruption can be stopped. The higher level corruption is where so you will need to have a very vigilant society, and you will need to have people who are prepared to say, I will not pay, and people who are prepared to say that I don't care if my project is delayed by 1 month or 2 months, I will not pay you. If that happens, you will find that corruption cannot be one-sided.
No, that's not possible, because every moment is precious for him. Paying 2,000 rupees is not the issue for him. No? So that becomes an issue. But most of the developed countries, you see corruption at a very high level and very huge. But at the lower level in functioning, the consumer, it doesn't affect him. Here, if you want to go and pay a tax, you have to pay a bribe with it. And that kind of situation doesn't exist in many other countries. Anyway, I think
I know.
it's
Compared to many parts of India, I think Kerala, the corruption even at that level is much lower, is what I
is
believe.
it so? Is it
I
so?
talk
I
to
see.
a lot of people, including business people.
All right. Anyway, shall we take the subject on to education, because you are greatly interested. You are on the state planning board, and I was also there. We tried to do various things. But how do you see this policy? How is it going to be acceptable to Kerala? That's the first point.
So one of the things with the new policy which I have said is that I don't think anyone in their right senses will find too much to oppose.
Too much to oppose.
To oppose.
No, but the Kerala government has already submitted a paper opposing everything.
I know. That is what I said. If you really want to see the quality of education change, if you're sincere about it, you need to ensure that you make some of those changes. There could be small things here, like, for example, the state government to be able to decide on the content in the curriculum, on history and culture and things like that, because that is what, and I would say the central government should allow that to happen at the state level, because
that is very sentimental. It will not have impact on employability or education standards.
On the overall thing, I don't think there's anything to be worried about. I think it is going to have a big impact, is what I believe. Because one of the things I actually tell is that in Kerala, something very specific to Kerala, there was a time when the businessmen used to send their children outside Kerala for higher education after that pre-degree at that time. All right.
Yes.
And then you had the bureaucrats who started sending the children outside Kerala. Why, when you ask them, they say, no, the institutions for higher education are not okay.
Right.
But the most interesting thing is, politicians also have started sending their children outside Kerala for higher education.
Whoever can afford.
Which means everyone is clear that the quality of higher education in Kerala is so bad that the politician doesn't want it, the bureaucrat doesn't want it, the businessman doesn't want it. Why are we forcing that on the poor guy who's not able to travel outside the state or outside?
But all of them seem to want the situation to continue for their own other interests, political interests, ideological interests.
Exactly. That is what I said. It is okay for me, but it is not okay for the common man. And that is why I've been telling in the last few weeks that the citizens, the civil society has to actually start getting more active. And unless the civil society starts demanding these things, you are not going to see a change. And one of the typical examples of that was the Trivandrum airport. If you look at it, the MP, local MP, actually Shashi Tharoor took a stand saying, I support the airport. But the Congress said no. And the reason for that was, I believe that he got a lot of his votes at that time because he actually took this stand. So you have to go with the pulse of the people. You can't think that your ideology stands above the pulse of the people. It cannot.
But if your party disowns you, then there is no point in doing that. That is where the problem will come.
That is why I
because he has to also survive in the party.
But the way you look at the way the stand of the Congress in the last few days has changed, I've spoken to many of them. They are very clear. I don't think they're going to create a problem on that. They realize it has to be privatized. They have a problem with the name. I think the court will ultimately decide, is what I think.
Okay.
So
coming back to education
plan. So I would say on that very clearly that is a very good policy, and I believe that it's going to have an impact. In fact, I am very supportive of the starting from age 3 and the model that they've done, because you know that the Trivandrum International School, we follow the International Baccalaureate Primary Years program. We actually start from kindergarten there. And for us, up to class 5 is 1 year, which we call the Primary Years program. 6, 7, 8 is our middle school, and 9, 10, 11, 12 is the higher part of the school. So that's something which we've been following for a very long time.
It's almost like the new 3+4, 4+3, etc.
It's exactly like that. But the challenge on this is not going to be implementation of that. It's going to be who is going to bear the cost of that.
And where are the institutions? Where are the teachers? So at the moment they pay money and get some service. But then once it is government, you may not get that. You may not be able to pay money for it. So you will take time.
The central government has talked about increasing the GDP share on this, or what they're going to spend.
6% of GDP.
But very clearly, the cost implication of that is going to be high. You want quality teachers, and like, for example, today, in the primary school, you don't need a teacher to be a graduate. I believe that in the primary school, you need the highest qualified people in the primary school. because that is where you actually make the biggest impact on the children. And you need to get your best teachers there. As they grow up, go to secondary school, they know to learn on their own. Here they are there. That is where the first. So clearly, there is going to be a big cost impact on this, especially on the way the institution will be run. And we should ensure that whatever we do ensures that somebody is not denied admission in a university or a good institution which comes up because they can't afford to get admission there. So there'll have to be scholarship schemes, there'll have to be loan schemes, there'll have to be funding for those programs. And they are
Even
showing
for private universities, we are ensured when we prepared the bill for a private university, we had ensured all this. But still, it was not acceptable because it's some kind of a mental block. Because unless you agree to liberalizing the education fully, this plan will not work. Because you need many more institutions, and when you talk about 50% GRE, the number of teachers you need, number of colleges you need, where will you find the money for it? So you have to open it out. There's no other way.
You have to open it out. You'll have to have Supreme Court doesn't allow cross-subsidizing. That's very simple. You create a scholarship fund, and everyone pays the fee is high, but those who deserve, you give them. Like the Ashoka University near Delhi. Okay, they take a lot of people who can't afford if their merit is there. So I think these are all doable, but there needs to be one needs to shed a lot of the old baggage and come forward. And you know it better than anyone else because you are holding the position of the vice
Yes,
chairman of the state.
I tried very hard, and I'm happy to see many of my projects are in the report. So, but that's not enough. You have to have that mindset has to change. People have to feel, because the whole thing that I was trying to do, they demonized it, didn't they? This global meet, so that will be the end of the whole thing. This is commercialization. What are we doing? We're not doing any commercialization. So this is the problem, and that is injected into the student community, and that is
So I think that is where civil society needs to start getting more proactive. You need to expose people who talk like this. So you need to find out where leaders, where their children are studying. Okay, I remember years ago when you talked about the Malayalam medium only, and then I think it's one of the leading Malayalam newspapers did a story on where the children of those MLAs and ministers are studying, and then the whole thing got shut down quickly. So clearly, I think civil society, the media needs to start exposing what I would call the double standards of several people, where they don't mind their children studying in self-financing colleges. They are okay with their children going and studying in the UK and the United States, but they don't want those universities to be available here. They don't mind their children going to outside Kerala and studying in a deemed university or in a private university, but they don't want those private universities to come to Kerala. So I would say that has to be exposed.
No, but Vijay, there is another aspect to this. These students who go abroad for studies or go to high universities are financed by somebody else, because it is become a means of corruption. Because nobody knows your son is studying in Cambridge. Who is paying his fees? Nobody knows. Necessarily, it is not. I have seen this happening to minister children coming into the United States and finding that they are being looked after by individual businessmen. So that is a major thing.
In fact, I know names doesn't look nice, but
of course
very interesting. Very interesting. At the same time, two sons, one of a leader from a party which is diametrically opposite and opposing the other party, had the same local garden in the UK. Right?
So the businessmen have no politics.
So we need to look at development now beyond politics. Earlier it was, some in Kerala also business has its politics, but clearly the development of the state, the development and opportunities given to the people of the state has to go beyond politics.
Yeah, true. No, but this very fact that this has become a channel for, receiving illegal or money laundering, etc. And that is an issue also. It is not that they are paying their money and spending their children. I have seen it myself. People telling me, how they're giving some kind of a menial job in a company, and then the company pays the entire education for the child, including accommodation, because the linkages are back home. So this is not very well known and it's not very visible, and that is one of the reasons.
that needs to be exposed. That's what I said. Civil society should start becoming more active and do it beyond politics. So you will find, look, one of the things is very clear. In Kerala, 75-80% of the people have their politics and they support a certain party. But even within that also, there is at least a huge number who believe that things are not happening in the right manner. How is it that we get those people to very clearly say that I am not going to vote for somebody who does not support the development of the state? I'm not going to vote for somebody who doesn't make available opportunities for the poorest of the poor to study in this state. And how do we expose people who actually are the ones who, like you said, misuse their power to ensure that their dear ones get the best facilities from around the world?
And Kerala will turn into a heaven.
It should. That's what I hope will happen in the next 5-10 years. That should happen. I would say it can happen very fast. But because let me tell you one thing, I work with politicians across every politician has something good in them. They want to do something. And if you are able to very clearly look at it that you have no skeletons to hide. Okay, I did 7 years at the Techno Park. Not one politician has asked me to collect money. Politicians have asked me to appoint people.
Favors.
But even there, I've said it's not possible. It's not possible. Okay? I've not done it. Not one appointment within Techno Park. I mean, in the main body. We were only 11 people, okay? But still, that was never done because of a political. I'm not saying it continues, but very clearly, the successive governments knew that we need to support this project taking forward. And we had the biggest contracts at that point of time. No money was. We had practically no vigilance inquiries at all. The other one is, you talk of labor. I had no labor. I did not go to the labor. Me or any of my staff never went to the labor office for 7 years that I was there.
How did you manage?
You manage it by you talk to the people. If required, like I have used Nayanar to solve my problem. I have used K. Karnagaran to solve my problem. When K. Karnagaran was Chief Minister, Nayanar was the party secretary. Because I found that somebody was not behaving well, and I would tell them, I would talk to them, the message would go down. When Mr. Karnagaran was the Chief Minister, the INTUC group alone was suspended from the campus completely for 2 weeks. They were not allowed to come into the construction site when the AITUC and CIT were working there. Because what did we do? I spoke to him, I told him what the problem is. He told me, what are you going to do? I said, this is what I'm going to do. And he said, just go ahead and do it. CIT and AITUC didn't know that the CM had agreed to that. And what they said is, if this guy is going to do this to Karnagaran's people, just imagine what he will do to us. But they realized that and I take that from Nayanar, where he said, be fair and be firm. That's what we did. We were fair, we were firm. And my happiest moment was the day when I left Techno Park. All the workers came and they thanked me for the kind of support that was given, because they knew that we were not exploiting them. And a few years later, when my father died, many of them came to into my place just to pay their respects. So clearly, you build up a rapport with them. The entire land acquisition that we did in phase 1 of Techno Park was done without a single strike. Because I met every household that was being evicted. I personally met them. And we went and we actually said that we have to be fair. I told the collector's office that be fair, give them the best price possible. I want them to get a price which they can't go to the court and get a higher price. That is why the escalation was not very high in those days. So you have to manage it well. You have to work with the people.
Well done. But finally, the most sensitive question: what do you think of what is happening around? Is the bureaucracy getting corrupted? Why this gold smuggling? And how is this involvement with the consulate and all that? How do you see it in the Trivandrum context? Because UAE is a very important partner for us. Now with the UAE-Israel connection, it has become even more important. Trivandrum, it doesn't matter for them, but now to put the blame on the consulate and create all this havoc, and we don't realize what we are doing.
I have taken a decision that I will not talk about that. Okay. There's too much of politics in that. Okay, so I will not talk about it. But that is something which should never have happened. Is all I would say.
Good. That's what I hope to. I'm particularly concerned about the UAE angle about this, because this may be a minor matter in the larger global context. But to have a little storm in the teacup in Trivandrum may have implications for our relations with the country.
True.
That is a sad part, as far as I'm concerned.
That's what I said is something which should never have happened. And I hope will never happen again.
All right. So thank you very much for spending all the time that discuss all this. You got a very good vision of what you think, and I hope you're right in expecting that these things will happen. And from your experience,
I think it can happen. If there is determination, it can happen within 5 years. If it is slow, it will probably take 15, 20 years. But it has to happen at some point of time.
Will COVID thrown in between, there could be further delays? No?
Frankly, I believe COVID is an opportunity. And like for simple thing with the airport, right? Adani is getting time to prepare, get everything in place. Airport is ready, in the new airport coming in. People want to come and see what it is. So you want to look at how do you convert this into an opportunity. And there are
the fear of survival is very important. And that is what hurts everybody, in the minds. When you do something, the people have started spending less because they don't know what the future is. And I was talking about that psychological aspect.
Psychologically, yes, but I would say that will change. And you will see that change happening in about 6 months' time. Because I believe that once the vaccine is out, you'll see a lot of change happening. It should happen in the first quarter of the next calendar year. You will see a lot of change happening. The second one is the impact of this on the minds of people is going to be there for a very long time.
That is it.
Because children have not been outside the home for nearly 4 or 5 months now, right? They're going to carry that weight for a very, very long time.
Even ourselves. How do you live in this house all the time, 24 hours? I cannot believe that. I never done it in the past. So that's a problem. Very good. All the best, Vijay.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good things that you do for the country and state.
Thank you. Thanks.